Well, thank you so much. Nicole, Lauren, good to see you guys. Welcome to
Good
you
to see you
both.
too.
You too.
Thanks for hopping on. Lots going on, lots to talk about with a nice, very specific topic like the future of media. So we'll go in a handful of directions, I'm sure. But thanks for hopping on today. Nicole, I'm actually going to start with you, if you don't mind. A question for you on kind of your role and purview and looking at Kellogg's company and the digital transformation. What's been I guess, the most impactful or eye-opening event in the transformation journey, whether that be marketing or media or digital media, kind of dealer's choice, but what's been the most impactful transformation that you've seen since your time there?
Yeah, well, I joined the company a little over 3 years ago. So we were here sort of pre-pandemic, and I sit in our global team, driving a lot of our digital transformation across the business. I would say that over the last 3 years, obviously COVID was a massive accelerator of online shopping and omni-commerce. Our teams had really been prepared, in advance, I guess, haphazardly, I should say, around arming ourselves and being ready for that massive shift that was taking place. And I think that our teams really had put a lot of effort into building our omni-commerce teams, investing in our retail media and data partnerships, and really investing in a lot of our digital shelf capabilities so that we can really understand, how we can drive in-stock and availability. So if we're starting to create demand through paid media efforts, whether that's through our retailers or other channels, that we can really fulfill the demand. So I think that's sort of been the biggest transformation or change, is how do we really harness the power of data to inform our retail media efforts and driving that omni-commerce experience for our shoppers.
Fortuitous head start on ahead of the pandemic and e-commerce boom and certainly the retail media boom, which inevitably we will touch on as we go here. But fantastic, thank you for that. And now both of you, and certainly I'm sure we've got some agency and some brand and some marketing service providers on the line today. Both of you came from an agency backdrop. What's it been like on the client side, and I guess what's the differences and positives and challenges and those types of dynamics?
It's definitely been really exciting on the client side. A pretty big change. I've been fortunate to be on the agency and the sales side. Both have been exciting as well. I'd say being on the client side, though, what I've been really most amazed by here at Kellogg is the amount of data we have access to, and just the wealth of it, and the size of our first-party database. It's definitely a strategic asset for us, and something that we're invested in, and the business is behind growing. It's a key enabler for us as we think about insights and how we buy and plan media and how we can measure and optimize. And with that, I've also been impressed with our KFR program, and just really the commitment behind first-party data and growing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo what Lauren said. I think, coming from agency side, it's, you don't get to see all the inner workings of the commercial side of the business. And so I think having more access to data to help drive the decisions and the what and the why behind the strategies, I think is also pretty different from coming from the agency side and not having your hands to keys access to all that information. So I think it's been really great for myself and my team to really dig into all of that, to really uncover insights and figure out how we can truly optimize our ways of working to drive more marketing effectiveness and efficiency.
Excellent. And I'll jump in on the data front, because that's certainly KFR has been around quite a while, and Kellogg's has been on the forefront of really first-party data. And as a vertical, CPG has been relying on a lot of others for that deterministic targeting and capabilities enter the rise of retail media, right? So as you guys look at first-party data and Kellogg's being first-party data rich and a strong loyalty program that's well established and been around for years, how is that? Do you start there in your planning and look at what you can action off of the insights and data that you guys have on hand, and or how are you evolving plans based off of your data first?
Do you want to take this one or you want me to take it?
Take it, Nicole.
So I would say that first-party data is certainly important in our overall data strategy, but it's definitely a combination of first and third-party data, which is how we're going to drive scale of our investments. I think that, obviously having access to first-party data gives us more of a competitive advantage of truly knowing and understanding who our shoppers and consumers are. But certainly we have to also think about the different data partnerships that we're establishing with retailers who own the point of transaction for us. And then how do we start to move ourselves to more addressable audience targeting, right? So I think it's a combination of all of those things together that truly are going to be able to deliver the scale. But then also, how are you starting to marry different data sets together to generate those insights really far up in our strategic planning? And then how does that then manifest itself into how we actually build media audiences and activate? So it's a pretty exciting time. I'm really just happy with the work that the team is leading and how we're continuing to build our capability in this area specifically.
And I would just add to Nicole and say, having first-party data for media planning enables us to, take an audience-first approach when we think about and identify really, is it that we need to recruit, reclaim, or retain our consumers and shoppers so that we can, best meet them where they are and in a meaningful way or most relevant way possible.
Okay, and that brings me to another question, not self-serving, although InMobi is mobile, but with 4.5 hours being spent by the average consumer on their device a day, you spoke to Lauren, meeting them where they are. Clearly, they're on the mobile devices. Are you guys planning by channel, or are you just kind of assuming that a lot of it is rolling to mobile because that's where the eyeballs are? How are you guys going about that? Are you looking at mobile as a specific channel, or is it kind of downstream of the planning that you're doing?
I would say we try to take an audience first approach and a data-driven approach and leverage different sets of tools to understand the media consumption behavior and patterns of our target consumers and shoppers, so that we understand what devices to buy, right? And what channels to be on, and what formats will most resonate with them. And that's something that we're very passionate here about at Kellogg's, is truly putting data at the core of everything that we do. Would you add anything, Nicole?
No, spot on.
I love that. I've always been a big proponent of who over where. If you're reaching the right audience, it doesn't matter where they are.
Right.
Reach them, engage them, and create an experience. On the front, shifting gears to a little bit of, I don't know if it's the backbone, but you guys have long been a linear TV player, and a big one at that. CTV, OTT, it's been a disruptive time in TV, let alone all the noise from digital and all the other channels. How has the disruption in linear TV changed your approach to whether it be upfronts or planning, commitments, nimbleness? What would you say on, or what can you say on the TV?
Yeah, I would say that it's no surprise to anybody that's buying media today that consumers are shifting to CTV, and that we're starting to see a decline in linear TV. I would say that Kellogg is certainly, again, sort of taking that data-driven approach to really understanding who our consumers and shoppers are and their media consumption behaviors. And leveraging that insight to help us plan our investments. I would say that we're definitely investing in CTV today. We're continuing to test and learn and to optimize those investments through new technologies and tools. But certainly I think that, I don't have a crystal ball as to where the upfronts are going, but given that we are seeing such big channel shifting, it's who knows what it's going to look like in a year, 2 years, or 3 years, if the upfronts will still be a thing or not. Again, I have no idea, but we'll continue to sort of shift with the audiences and continue to test and learn our way through that to drive that effectiveness and efficiency and make sure that we're driving incremental reach as we add more channels.
We definitely still live in a hybrid world today. And we see both channels help us to reach different types of growth audiences. So
yeah, absolutely. There's still scale. So and on the test and learn front, so much in the digital space has been top heavy, so to speak, with Amazon, Google, Facebook, the big three representing so much of our ecosystem. As you look at balancing keeping those important players and then testing and learning with additional players, how do you guys think about that and kind of gauge opportunities across Kellogg's? Do you do brand by brand? What's your approach?
Yeah, I can't go into all the details of how we actually plan across our brands and categories, but what I can say is that, yeah, I mean, the top players, Facebook, Google, Amazon even, are all kind of players in our overall channel mix. I would say, though, that as we continue to see the rise of retail media, that always is going to play a part of our investment and channel choices, especially as we partner with our retailers, not only as a seller of goods, but also as an entertainment and way to reach consumers and shoppers. So I think that we'll continue to take an audience first approach, but it gets a little bit more complicated, I think, when you think about the different JBPs that you might have in place with different customers for either data or media, because we are selling in those channels as well. But I think we'll continue brand by brand based on the objectives of those brands, and our strategies will sort of dictate for us, where we place those investments across those channels. Anything to add, Lauren?
No, I think you're spot on. Also very similar when you think of our retailers. It's similar to if I were an endemic brand in the sports category, right? I'd have contractual obligations. So you have to just take that into consideration as you plan your budgets. So
yeah, absolutely. That seems to be a consistent challenge across the vertical, is balancing the retail commitments across both media and trade, along with whether it be national programmatic or other reach you have going out to that audience, and trying as best you can to keep swim lanes clean, if that's even possible in today's landscape.
Right.
It's becoming more and more challenged. On the kind of technology side, we've talked already a lot about data and partnerships, as well as platforms. But as you look at the way technology has gone over the last couple of years, the science has gotten really, really good. One of the things I will say Kellogg's has always been phenomenal at is reaching consumers, engaging with them, and kind of leading with emotive, if you will, kind of stories and narratives to the audience. So there's always been that art of messaging. And the science has gotten so good, it almost seems like things have levered into performance. Everything is performance and everything is the science side of it. How do you help the brands keep kind of an eye on the prize of balancing the art and science of whether it be digital media or any of your media as you work with the collaborative brand marketers?
Yeah, so I love this question. So I would say that, we believe that, of course, science, plays an important role, and it's only going to play a more important role as technology continues to advance and improve. But to your point, Jeff, the art is also really important. And you see that in really every aspect, from building a plan to buying to measuring and optimizing. And a great example is when we look at our MMM results, the science behind them is incredibly important, but it really takes, human intelligence to provide context to those results, and surface those insights back to our marketers so they understand what types of optimizations they need to make in the future and why. For example, creative performance, as you mentioned, right? How can you better enhance your creative from the art of your message being persuasive to adhering to best practice to in-flight learnings? Some of those things can be learned through science, but it's really the art that brings everything together in just a delicious sort of way. So, but we are excited for what science will bring, and bringing more of it into how we plan and buy media, because we know it will help us to go faster and make faster decisions as things in the environment change that we just can't control. So it's a balance. It is a balance today, and we always see it as a balance.
Yeah. I think the one thing to just add to what Lauren said is just, further emphasis on the overall data strategy and how you are looking at all the information, right? So, making sure that you've got access to being able to bring different data sets together is also, I think, just as important as sort of the technology and the interfaces that you're hands to keys using every single day. And, can't stress like the importance of taxonomy and, overall data hygiene as well. And the portability of different data sets across the business, whether that's, sales or digital shelf health metrics or other data sets that can be, added signals to help you really drive those insights, and even some of the predictive kind of optimization recommendations, things like that from different tools.
Yeah, the addressability topic, I think will continue to be a loud one in the back half here as all the ID solutions and everything else continues to evolve and mature, which is a good thing. That's a great thing on the science side, but gotta have the scale and actionability off of it. Fantastic. Well, thank you both for that. Kind of on that, Lauren, piggybacking off of some of the things you said and sharing and bringing those brand managers and making sure that keeping things a balance between the art and science. Kellogg's is no surprise one of the country's most trusted brands according to Morning Consult. You guys have been awarded, I believe it was brand building fundamentals, but you guys are known for that discipline in approach, but also in outcomes. Advice for other marketers on the line on building that art and science rigor into the year every day.
Nicole, you want to take that one? You had.
Yeah, sure thing. So here at Kellogg, our Deploy for Growth strategy, we have two key initiatives. There's many initiatives in that, but I think the two important ones to this topic are people are competitive advantage, and we need to build world-class brands. And so a lot of the work that our team does in partnership with our regions and local market and brand teams is really investing in the people and really making sure that we are upskilling the marketers, not only of today, but we're building their capabilities for tomorrow. So we've invested a lot in different training programs, whether it's brand building fundamentals that you mentioned, or our Kellogg way of inclusive marketing, or how are we driving, media best practices. We're spending a lot of time in taking a lot of the learnings from across the globe and being able to share those learnings so that we can scale them faster across our markets and brands. I think the other piece around kind of building world-class brands is, we've really been partnering with all of our brands at a level to help them better articulate, what their brand purpose is, what is that brand architecture, those specific distinctive brand assets, and then how does that then kind of manifest its way through into our creative execution, and how we show up, even on the shelf. So I think that Kellogg, I've been really impressed with just the amount of financial investment, but also people time investment that the company puts behind building and maintaining our people so that they can truly be the most effective marketers possible in our organization.
Excellent. As a Michigan boy myself, Midwest pride, fantastic. That's great. And you touched on the global aspect. Just want to bring this up quickly. Obviously, every region acts a little bit different. The consumers are a little bit different. But has it been, I guess, opportunistically, have you been bringing things from the East that potentially in APAC and areas that may be a little bit more mobile centric, or the consumers behave in a different way? Have there been unique opportunities or cool things or that you'd want to highlight or that you can talk about on those fronts that, with you guys having the global lens that you brought over from other markets that was really interesting, or that you've seen in other markets that you're excited to come here in the States?
Yeah, I think there's constant sharing back and forth as to what each of the regions are doing. And, especially as we think about some of our more global brands like Pringles or Cheez-It or Frosted Flakes, for example, right? So we have a big presence of these iconic brands across the globe. And so there's a lot of co-collaboration that's going on between regions, and sharing of those best practices, what's worked with their audiences, what were the assets that they were creating, can those assets be repurposed in other markets, or if a campaign was super successful, how can we replicate that in another market? So I think there's obviously like productivity efficiencies, but also creative effectiveness efficiencies that we can drive through that. But certainly, we bring our community together to have kind of a shared dialogue around, learning objectives, or, we're thinking about bringing on a new partner for this, or we're testing into a different channel. Has anyone done these things? And then how can we kind of take what's already been done and scale it more quickly? People have a very open mind, and are willing to learn and take ideas from other places and replicate those. I think there's been a lot of fantastic work that we've done in gaming, specifically on our Pringles brand, and how we show up, reaching sort of that next generation of audiences for that brand. So it's been a really, I think, exciting time. And as we start to kind of continue to standardize more of our methodologies, the scalability of a lot of these things will become much more efficient for us across the globe.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. Lauren, anything to add?
No, I echo Nicole's sentiment with gaming. We've definitely learned a lot through Pringles across the globe. And then also in measurement, with testing attention as a new KPI. We have markets testing different vendors, so gathering those learnings, establishing kind of brand safety rules. We've been able to lift and shift those from our peers in the US. With creative, we've seen some really neat artificial intelligence tools pop up in Asia. And we've also, seen some of our peers leverage some different creators networks, which has been interesting to see. So all different examples of learnings and best practices that we share with our partners globally.
Excellent. Yeah, the intention metric dynamic is, it's another example of science getting a lot better and helping us. We all know CTR is a bad proxy, right, for sales, but striving to find that next signal that can help us across the industry, and attention, whether it's dwell time or eyeballs. There's a lot of different solutions out there. So glad to hear. And on the sharing side, one other component, RXBAR was a recent-ish addition. And they have a pretty good stronghold of D2C versus the portfolio, which has largely been food, drug, mass. Learnings crossing sides both ways. Are you helping them on the distribution and some of those sides of typical retail? And what are they bringing to the party from the D2C side and discipline that potentially can have legs with other brands?
Yeah, absolutely. D2C is still not something that is at scale across our business. I think RXBAR is really the truly D2C experience. We've had a couple of other incubator brands over the years that we've been working on as well. But I think the great thing with RXBAR is that, we can drive closed loop measurement for the most part, because we're owning that point of transaction. So as we, test different media, media placements, different buying methods, things like that across channels, we're able to actually see what is that actual conversion that we're able to drive from those. And out of that can drive a lot of best practice sharing as we think about other brands that are starting to do more performance driven marketing. I think also, with RXBAR, we have the ability to better understand sort of journeys and how we can orchestrate kind of content and the delivery of that content across channels. And then I think, as we think about additional first party data acquisition, and that being a key enabler or a key strategy that we have, is, direct to consumer provides another way for us to acquire first party data. And so, as you can imagine, right, there's a lot of opportunity, I think, for brands. I'll use Cheez-It as an example. So we had the 100th anniversary of Cheez-It recently. And one of the things that the brand has done, they've never really done direct to consumer per se off of their website, but we enabled direct to consumer, and we we delivered some limited edition flavors to our loyalists and our community of followers of the brand. And we enabled a direct to consumer experience where they could buy those limited edition flavors, in addition to some glassware that allows you to kind of pair your Cheez-It with wine. And it has a little kind of holding vessel for your Cheez-Its in that glassware. So another just kind of example of a way that a brand can really drive further engagement with their audience, and using D2C in some different ways, while also capturing that first party data that's so important to us.
I love that. I love that example. Cheez-Its and wine. Fantastic. And Lauren, you mentioned MMM on a couple occasions as we've gone through topics today. As you've looked at from the measurement lens, also that change of whether it's D2C or e-com and what's happening in brick and mortar, has your MMM held consistent in approach, or have you had to change or evolve working with your partner? I apologize for not knowing this offhand. Are you guys doing your MMM in-house or with a third party?
So it's really pending market if it's in-house or with a third party partner. But I would say yes, our MMMs have had to evolve to include the e-commerce channel. I think we're still working on that depending on the market, and establishing the right methodology that we're all comfortable with and we feel is fair, while also trying to figure out how to evolve to an MTA solution that we can all get behind. That for us is a North Star and something we're trying to evolve to. But yes, for sure, our measurement has evolved and will continue to evolve, because it's just such a changing landscape, and also what we can and can't measure is constantly evolving, and hopefully will only evolve more. So it's something we're always working on, and we're in the process of establishing a global measurement framework across all channels that does bring in MMM as well, to truly, get a read on what is and isn't working for a brand. So, that is something we know will evolve too over time. But, within that framework, we for sure have retail measurement. across paid media and the digital shelf. So yes. Anything you would add, Nicole?
No, I think that's spot on. I mean, I think that, you know, the holy grail, right, is getting to more real-time measurement solutions. And MMM is great, but it's a look back, and it depends on how long that look back window is for when we get results back as well, depending on if it's an in-house versus you know, an outsourced model for that. So I think, you know, obviously, I think other brands and advertisers are trying to figure out the same thing right now of how you get to better real-time signals to drive those optimizations and to figure out what's working in more real-time or near real-time.
Yeah, and that move from MMM to MTA is something we've been hearing quite a bit about too, and just the overlay, you know, all the emphasis behind audience, you know, you're trying to reach them wherever they are. Inevitably, multiple of your media is touching that same consumer. So how do you get to an attributable state to say,
Right.
you know, this closed the deal, or this influenced, you know, this mix had the optimal outcome.
Right. I think it's an and though. I don't think that MMM is going to go away.
Yeah.
I think that it's definitely an and scenario for us. And, you know, again, it's a constantly evolving space. So we'll continue to sort of keep an eye on it and evolve as the industry does and the data availability.
Logical. And so a big question to wrap our future media, and then we'll get to some Q&A. But the broadest one of the day, and probably the most daunting one of the day. You guys know your business inside and out, but what do you think the biggest change in advertising will be over the next 10 years?
For me, it's data privacy and regulation, right, and ethics. I think that you know, we're sort of at an escalation point, I would say, of all of these things starting to come together, which is, you know, how do we continue to give consumers the right to own their data, regardless of kind of who has it? And how do we ensure that we're driving transparency with our consumers, but also how do we, you know, vet our data partners as well to make sure that they're upholding the same ethics and standards and security that we have as an organization. But I think that, you know, we're going to continue to see more regulation in this space. Obviously, you know, moving to the cookieless world is impending right now. But even just what we've seen across some of our big media partners over the last few years and in the press, I think, you know, consumers demand more, but their behaviors will still put them on certain channels. But I think it's for us at Kellogg, you know, we take a lot of pride in ensuring that we are being safe with people's data and that we're being transparent with how we're using it. And so I think that is going to be for the industry another big focus area, and how companies start to put more ethics in place around how they're driving some of the decisions that they're making off of the data that they're using.
I would say, kind of building off of one of your earlier questions today, identifying, you know, the right tools and tech to keep up and move with the speed of change. You know, gone are the days where we can really do everything by hand, and by hand I mean in Excel charts and through email and sending attachments. You know, I believe over the next 10 years, a lot of clients will be almost forced to put tools in place in order to move faster. Anything else? Would you agree, Nicole, or add anything?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's automation in a lot of this, right? And the AI that we're able to unlock. So it's going to continue to be more investment. And so it's like, how do you offset that investment, you know, and make sure that it's paying out for you so that you're in sort of a self-funding model, because none of this stuff is cheap to do, right?
That's for sure. Sure. And all right, I lied on the last question. I've got one more on just something you brought up, Nicole. on the cookieless future, and with the news and the further postponement, did that give you guys breathing room, or is it still just full steam ahead? We've got to solve this regardless. So whether it's in 22, 23, or 24, it's just got to happen.
Yeah, it has to happen. So I think there's no slowing down in anything that you're doing, especially when you work for a big organization. It takes time to get things set up, and also to be, establishing those data partnerships, growing your first party data, all of those things. So I think that, it's imminent, it's coming. And so I think, our message internally has just been, we've got to start continuing to move the ball down the field, and, be as ready as we can when it actually happens.
Excellent.
And in the meantime,
all right, let me get over to Q&A. Oh, sorry, Lauren, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, in the meantime, there's a lot to gain from having a large pool of first party data. So, it's not just the cookieless world. It's truly having first party data be your competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Got it. Agreed. Agreed. All right, let me get over to Q&A in the chat here real quick. We've got from Babs. Bear with me, it's kind of a multi-parter, but given that we're talking about the future, what are your thoughts on Web 3.0 and its potential, if any, impact on media and advertising, especially given Facebook is betting the future on the metaverse?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been starting to talk a lot about this internally, and we definitely see on the horizon that this is coming, and we are already doing some things and experimenting in Web 3.0 and the metaverse. Whether we're building games in Roblox, with Fruit Loops, for example, or we're figuring out how we can drive more integration through other partnerships that we might have in the media space, and just continuing to encourage our brands to start to test and learn in Web 3.0 and in the metaverse, and starting to see what can resonate, because we definitely don't want to, in 3 years' time say, oh wait, it's here and we haven't tried anything yet. So I think it's a constant test and learn space for us, and for those brands that have the ability to drive innovation into new channels, this is the right thing for them to start to play around with.
Yeah. Lauren, anything to add on that?
No, nothing to add. Nicole nailed it.
All right, looks like, we have one more come in. Close the Q&A. Question from Brand Lens. How important is authentic UGC content for Kellogg's?
Lauren, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. I think it's important. We definitely are leveraging influencer content across the globe, and we're still learning around it as well. How to measure the impact is hard for us, but we certainly see value in terms of repurposing it for our owned assets, or paid assets, but we also see it driving performance. That's been a key learning we've had in Asia, actually. They manage their own influencer platform for smaller markets that don't have a lot of money. It's really the key asset they depend on, and we've seen correlations to other brand KPIs that have shown improvements in sales and in penetration, where they can draw a correlation to UGC content. So I would say it's important, and it's only growing for us.
It's good to hear and positive. And you guys know I've worked across CPG and pharma, and pharma brands are still very afraid of UGC, for rightfully so. But especially in CPGs, in our environment, it can be a huge asset, and it can be a really powerful tool. Get over that fear of what might happen. Yeah, you think the worst case scenario, and you got a plan for it, but it can be certainly a powerful tool. So good to hear. Carrie, I think we are done with questions. Real quick though, Nicole, Lauren, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys taking the time and giving us some insights into Kellogg's and your guys' roles and the transformation that Kellogg's is upon. So thank you both for your time and candor today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeff. It's great to be here.
Thanks so much. And thank you for introducing us all to Cheez-Its and wine. I think that sounds like the perfect lunch for a Tuesday, right?
Heck yeah.
Absolutely.